Welcome to Catholic Shrine Basilica YouTube channel. Sanctuary of Our Lady of Lourdes, France. Introduction. The Sanctuary of Our Lady of Lourdes, France, French, Sanctuaire de Notre-Dame de Lourdes, or the Domain, as it is most commonly known, is an area of ground surrounding the Catholic shrine, Grotto, to Our Lady of Lourdes in the town of Lourdes, France. The sanctuary is a destination for pilgrimage. Sick pilgrims are reputed to be miraculously healed by Lourdes water. This ground is owned and administered by the Roman Catholic Church, and has several functions, including devotional activities, offices, and accommodation for sick pilgrims and their helpers. The domain includes the grotto itself, the nearby taps which dispense the Lourdes water, and the offices of the Lourdes Medical Bureau, as well as several churches and basilicas. It comprises an area of 51 hectares, and includes 22 separate places of worship. There are 6 official languages of the sanctuary: French, English, Italian, Spanish, Dutch, and German. Grottos intended as replicas of the one at Our Lady of Lourdes, and other grottos in honor of Our Lady of Lourdes, are often described as Lourdes grottos. History of Sanctuary of Our Lady of Lourdes, France. The Sanctuary of Our Lady of Lourdes, France began in the 19th century AD. In 1858, from 11 February to 16 July, a 14-year-old peasant girl, called Bernadette Soubirous, saw a vision of the Virgin Mary while playing in the stream with her sister and friend. The vision was of Mary standing next to a rose bush at the entrance to the Massabielle Grotto, on the left bank of the stream. Bernadette saw this vision 18 times. She told her sister not to tell their parents, but her sister was bad at keeping secrets and told them anyway. Her parents became mad and forbid them to go to the grotto again. Bernadette ignored their orders. She was told by the lady that a spring would appear there, and that people were to come in procession. On land bordered by a loop of the Gave de Pau River is an outcrop of rock called Massabielle, from Masse Vieille, Old Mass. On the northern aspect of this rock, near the river bank, is a naturally occurring, irregularly shaped shallow cave or grotto, in which the apparitions took place. At the time of the apparitions, the grotto lay well outside town, on common ground which was used by the villagers variously for pasturing animals, collecting firewood, and as a garbage dump, and it had a reputation for being an unpleasant place. The figure always appeared in one place, a niche above the main cavity of the grotto, in which a wild rose bush was growing. Among the instructions from the Virgin were go and drink from the spring, go and tell the priests to build a chapel here, and have the people come here in procession. These 3 instructions in particular were to prove pivotal in the development of the domain and its ceremonies. Public interest in the apparitions grew, and curious visitors began to be replaced by pilgrims from increasingly far away, drawn by compelling stories of apparitions and miracles. A local priest, Abbé Dominique Paramali, together with his bishop, Monseigneur Bertrand Xavier Mascaro Lawrence, bought the grotto and the land around it from the commune in 1861, 3 years after the apparitions. Immediately they set about modifying the area to make it more accessible to visitors, and started work to build the first of the churches, which is now known as the crypt. In 1864, the Lyonnais sculptor Joseph Hugues Fabisch was commissioned to create a statue of Our Lady of Lourdes based on Bernadette's descriptions. Although it has become an iconic symbol of Our Lady of Lourdes, it depicts a figure which is not only older and taller than Bernadette's description, but also more in keeping with orthodox and traditional representations of the Virgin Mary. The statue rests in the niche where the Virgin appeared to Bernadette. The original wild rose bush was destroyed shortly after the apparitions by pilgrims seeking relics, but a newer one has been planted nearby. Due to French political upheaval resulting in an enforced separation of church and state, the property and grounds of the domain were confiscated from the church and returned to the ownership of the town in 1910. The then bishop, manager François-Xavier Chauffeur, contested this confiscation and was permitted to rent the domain from the town until the outbreak of World War I in 1914. Later, a visit to Lourdes by Marshal Pétain in 1941 provided official recognition of the domain. Church officials successfully petitioned Pétain to allow the church to reclaim ownership of the domain. Our Lady of Lourdes. Our Lady of Lourdes, French, Notre-Dame de Lourdes, is a title of Mary, Mother of Jesus. The Virgin Mary is venerated under this title by the Roman Catholic Church due to her apparitions that occurred in Lourdes, France. The first apparition of 11 February 1858, of which Bernadette Soubirous, age 14, told her mother that a lady spoke to her in the cave of Massabielle, 1.5 kilometers from the town, while she was gathering firewood with her sister and a friend. Similar apparitions of the lady were reported on 18 occasions that year, until the climax revelation of Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception took place. On 18 January 1862, the local bishop of Tarbes Bertrand Xavier Lawrence endorsed the veneration of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Lourdes. On 1 February 1876, Pope Pius IX officially granted a decree of canonical coronation to the image as Notre-Dame du Saint-Rosaire. The coronation was performed by Cardinal Pier Francesco Meglia at the courtyard of what is now part of the Rosary Basilica on 3 July 1876. The image of Our Lady of Lourdes has been widely copied and reproduced in shrines and homes, often in garden landscapes. Bernadette Soubirous was canonized by Pope Pius XI in 1933. Marian devotion has since steadily increased as ecclesiastical investigations sanctioned her visions. In later years, a large church was built at the site that has since become a major site of religious pilgrimage. Apparitions. On 11 February 1858, Soubirous went with her sister Toinette and neighbor Jean Abadi to collect some firewood. While taking off her shoes and stockings to wade through the water near the Grotto of Massabielle, she said she heard the sound of 2 gusts of wind, caused a vent, but the trees and bushes nearby did not move. A wild rose in a natural niche in the grotto, however, did move. I came back towards the grotto and started taking off my stockings. I had hardly taken off the first stocking when I heard a sound like a gust of wind. Then I turned my head towards the meadow. I saw the trees quite still. I went on taking off my stockings. I heard the same sound again. As I raised my head to look at the grotto, I saw a lady dressed in white, wearing a white dress, a blue girdle and a yellow rose on each foot, the same color as the chain of her rosary. The beads of the rosary were white. From the niche, or rather the dark alcove behind it, came a dazzling light. Soubirous tried to make the sign of the cross but could not, as her hands were trembling. The lady smiled, and invited Soubirous to pray the rosary with her. Soubirous tried to keep this a secret, but Toinette told her mother. After parental cross-examination, she and her sister received corporal punishment for their story. 3 days later, 14th of February, Soubirous returned to the grotto. She had brought holy water as a test that the apparition was not of evil origin/provenance. The second time was the following Sunday. Then I started to throw holy water in her direction, and at the same time I said that if she came from God she was to stay, but if not, she must go. She started to smile, and bowed. This was the second time. Soubirous' companions are said to have become afraid when they saw her in ecstasy. She remained ecstatic even as they returned to the village. On 18th of February, She spoke of being told by the lady to return to the grotto over a period of 2 weeks. She quoted the apparition, "The lady only spoke to me the third time. She told me also that she did not promise to make me happy in this world, but in the next." Subiru was ordered by her parents to never go there again. She went anyway, and on 24th of February, Subiru related that the apparition asked for prayer and penitence for the conversion of sinners. The next day, she said the apparition asked her to dig in the ground and drink from the spring she found there. This made her disheveled and some of her supporters were dismayed, but this act revealed the stream that soon became a focal point for pilgrimages. Although it was muddy at first, the stream became increasingly clean. As word spread, this water was given to medical patients of all kinds, and many reports of miraculous cures followed. 7 of these cures were confirmed as lacking any medical explanations by Professor Verges in 1860. The first person with a certified miracle was a woman whose right hand had been deformed as a consequence of an accident. Several miracles turned out to be short-term improvement or even hoaxes, and Catholic Church and government officials became increasingly concerned. The government fenced off the grotto and issued stiff penalties for anybody trying to get near the off-limits area. In the process, Lourdes became a national issue in France, resulting in the intervention of Emperor Napoleon III with an order to reopen the grotto on 4 October 1858. The Church had decided to stay away from the controversy altogether. Subiru, knowing the local area well, managed to visit the barricaded grotto under cover of darkness. There, on 25th of March, she said she was told, "I am the Immaculate Conception, que soy era Immaculata Concepcia." On Easter Sunday 7th of April, her examining doctor stated that Subiru, in ecstasy, was observed to have held her hands over a lit candle without sustaining harm. On 16th of July, Subiru went for the last time to the grotto. "I have never seen her so beautiful before," she reported. The Catholic Church, faced with nationwide questions, decided to institute an investigative commission on 17 November 1858. On 18 January 1860, the local bishop finally declared that the Virgin Mary did appear indeed to Bernadette Subiru. These events established the Marian veneration in Lourdes, which together with Fatima and the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe is one of the most frequented Marian shrines in the world, and to which between 4 and 6 million pilgrims travel annually. In 1863, Joseph Hugues Fabisch was charged to create a statue of the Virgin according to Subiru's description. The work was placed in the grotto and solemnly dedicated on 4 April 1864 in presence of 20,000 pilgrims. The veracity of the apparitions of Lourdes is not an article of faith for Catholics. Nevertheless, all recent popes have visited the Marian shrine at some time. Benedict XV, Pius XI, and John XXIII went there as bishops, Pius XII as papal delegate. He also issued an encyclical, Le Pèlerinage de Lourdes, on the 100th anniversary of the apparitions in 1958. John Paul II visited Lourdes 3 times during his pontificate, and twice before as a bishop. Bernadette's description of Mary. Subiru described the apparition as un petito damiselo, a tiny maiden, of about 14 to 15 years old. Subiru insisted that the apparition was no taller than herself. At 1.40 meters, 4 feet 7 inches, tall, Subiru was diminutive even by the standards of other poorly nourished children. Subiru described the apparition as dressed in a flowing white robe, with a blue sash around her waist. This was the uniform of a religious group called the Children of Mary, which, on account of her poverty, Subiru was not permitted to join, although she was admitted after the apparitions. Her Aunt Bernard was a long-time member. The statue that currently stands in the niche within the Grotto of Massabielle was created by the Lyonnais sculptor Joseph Hugues Fabisch in 1864. Although it has become an iconographic symbol of Our Lady of Lourdes, it depicts a figure which is not only older and taller than Subiru description, but also more in keeping with orthodox and traditional representations of the Virgin Mary. On seeing the statue, Subiru was profoundly disappointed with this representation of her vision. Similar events. In nearby Listel-Betharam, only a few kilometers from Lourdes, some shepherds guarding their flocks in the mountains observed a vision of a ray of light that guided them to the discovery of a statue of the Virgin Mary. 2 attempts were made to remove the statue to a more prominent position. Each time it disappeared and returned to its original location, at which a small chapel was built for it. In the early 16th century, a 12-year-old shepherdess called Angels de Sagazan received a vision of the Virgin Mary near the spring at Garrison, part of the commune of Mont-Léon-Magnoac, somewhat further away. Angels's story is strikingly similar to that of Subiru. She was a pious but illiterate and poorly educated girl, extremely impoverished, who spoke only in the local language, Gascon Occitan, but successfully convinced authorities that her vision was genuine and persuaded them to obey the instructions of her apparitions. Like Subiru, she was the only one who could see the apparition. However, the apparition at Garrison's supernatural powers tended toward the miraculous provision of abundant food, rather than healing the sick and injured. Mid-19th century commentators noted the parallels between the events at Massabielle and Garrison, and interpreted the similarities as proof of the divine nature of Subiru claims. At the time of Subiru, Garrison was a noted center of pilgrimage and Marian devotion. There are also several similarities between the apparition at La Salette, near Grenoble, and Lourdes. La Salette is many hundreds of kilometers from Lourdes, and the events at La Salette predate those in Lourdes by 12 years. However, the Marian apparition at La Salette was tall and maternal, not petite and gentle like her Lourdes apparition, and had a darker, more threatening series of messages. It is not certain if Subiru was aware of the events at La Salette. Approval by a local bishop. On 18 January 1862, the Bishop of Tarbes Bertrand Severt Lawrence declared the following regarding the Marian apparitions: "We are inspired by the commission comprising wise, holy, learned and experienced priests who questioned the child, studied the facts, examined everything and weighed all the evidence. We have also called on science, and we remain convinced that the apparitions are supernatural and divine, and that by consequence, what Subiru saw was the most blessed Virgin. Our convictions are based on the testimony of Subiru, but above all on the things that have happened, things which can be nothing other than divine intervention." Lourdes water. Lourdes water flows from a spring at the same spot where it was discovered by Bernadette. The original spring can be seen within the grotto, lit from below and protected by a glass screen. Pilgrims drink Lourdes water due to its reputed healing power. The water is accessed from individual taps located between the grotto and the baths. The water from Lourdes was thoroughly analyzed by independent chemists in 1858 and 1859, and does not appear to have a latent power to cure and has no special scientific or medicinal properties. Despite this, the water is itself a strong symbol of devotion for Lourdes pilgrims, and many buy statues and rosary beads containing small vials of it, and take home large plastic containers of it. Baths. Each year about 350,000 pilgrims bathe in the water at the baths, piscine. During the pilgrimage season, the baths are open 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays and 10 a.m. to 12 noon and 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Sundays and holidays. Blessed Sacrament Procession. The Blessed Sacrament Procession is held daily at 5 p.m. The procession begins at the open-air altar on the prairie across the river from the grotto and is led by sick pilgrims followed by a priest, bishop or cardinal carrying a monstrance containing the Blessed Sacrament. Typically the bearer of the Blessed Sacrament is sheltered from the elements by a mobile awning/canopy, called a baldachin, carried by 4 assistants. The Blessed Sacrament is accompanied by bearers carrying candles, incense burners or other devotional symbols. These bearers are lay helpers chosen from the pilgrims. Following directly behind the Blessed Sacrament, both during the procession and the blessing of the sick, will be a representative group of doctors from the various pilgrimages. Lastly, there are groups of pilgrims, some following their parish or diocesan banner. The procession makes its way across the river, past the crowned statue, along the esplanade and down into the St. Pius X underground basilica where the sick pilgrims are placed at the front of the altar. During the procession there are meditations, prayers, hymns and chants, in several languages. When all the participants have assembled, there is a period of Eucharistic adoration, followed by the blessing of the sick. During extreme weather conditions, the procession will take place inside the basilica. Torchlight Procession. The Torchlight Marian procession takes place daily at 9 p.m. It begins near the grotto and continues around the esplanade ending in the Rosary Square. In extreme weather an indoor ceremony may be held in the underground basilica instead. The procession is led by sick pilgrims followed by volunteers carrying a replica of the cabochette statue of the Virgin Mary. Most participants carry a candle. The focus of this procession is the Rosary. All 5 decades are recited, usually in a variety of languages. The Lord hymn is also sung, with verses in different languages. Intercessions may be invoked followed by the Laudate Mariam. There is a final blessing in Latin, and then an invitation to exchange the sign of peace with fellow pilgrims. Crypt. The crypt was the first of the churches to be completed in the domain, and is today among the smallest. Construction was started by Abbé Paramali and manager Lawrence. Bernadette's father worked on its construction and was present at its official opening, on Pentecost Sunday, 1866. The nave is small and a notable feature as are the enormous pillars which support the weight of the upper basilica, which was constructed on top of it. The crypt is entered along a corridor, whose entrance is dominated by a large bronze statue of Saint Peter, holding the keys of the Kingdom of Heaven. Opposite stands a statue of Pius X. The walls of the corridor and nave are lined with small marble plaques, known as ex voto plaques, donated in thanks of spiritual favors received. Upper Basilica. The Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, known widely as the Upper Basilica, was the second of the churches to be completed, consecrated in 1876. It is an impressive, elaborate building in Gothic style, designed by architect Hippolyte Durand, and on one side seems to emerge directly from the rock of Massabielle. The sanctuary is directly above the grotto. The walls are lined with ex voto plaques, and banners from official national pilgrimages of the past. It has a series of stained glass windows depicting various events in the story of Lourdes. The clerestory windows depict Mary as the second Eve. The exterior is dominated by a 70-meter spire, and 2 lesser spires, not completed until 1908. Above the entrance is a mosaic depicting Pope Pius IX, who defined the dogma of the Immaculate Conception in 1854. Rosary Basilica. The Rosary Basilica is the third of the churches to be completed, in 1899, and designed by architect Leopold Hardy. It was consecrated in 1901 and has a capacity of 1,500 worshippers. Its style is influenced by Byzantine architecture. The nave is open and circular, surmounted by a dome. The exterior of the dome is surmounted by a dramatic gilded crown and cross, which were a gift from the people of Ireland in 1924. The exterior facade of the basilica was modified in 2007 to include a depiction of the luminous mysteries, which are not a part of traditional 15, but of an extended version of it by Pope John Paul II in 2002. Crown statue and Rosary Square. The open space in front of the Rosary Basilica is known as Rosary Square. The entrances to the crypt and the upper basilica, both of which are built on top of Masabiel, are far above ground level. To facilitate access, two enormous ramps were constructed, which curve down either side of Rosary Square. The image of the entrance of the Rosary Basilica, flanked by the two ramps and surmounted by the spires of the upper basilica, has become one of the iconic symbols of Lourdes, and a stylized form of this image has been adopted by the domain itself as its logo. The statue of the Crowned Virgin, often known as the Crowned Statue, French, La Vierge Couronnée, stands across Rosary Square from the Rosary Basilica and faces the entrance. This prominent statue is a familiar landmark and a traditional meeting point. The statue is 2.5 meters high and cast in bronze, painted white and blue in the traditional colors. Her rosary is of the Bergentine style and incorporates 6 decades. Behind the crowned statue is the esplanade, a large open walkway which is used for the processions. Underground Basilica. The Basilica of St. Pius X, known as the Underground Basilica, is the largest and most controversial of the domain's churches. It was designed by the architect Pierre Vago and completed in 1958 in anticipation of the enormous crowds expected in Lourdes for the centenary of the apparitions. A modern, concrete building, it is almost entirely underground. Part of the building lies beneath the boulevard Père Remy Simpé above. When full, it can accommodate 25,000 worshippers. Feast Day, 11th February. The liturgical feast of Our Lady of Lourdes was established for 11th February, approved by Pope Leo XIII, and first granted to the Diocese of Tarbes in the year 1890. Less than 20 years later, on November 13, 1907, his successor, Pope St. Pius X, proclaimed that it be observed throughout the Universal Church. Mass time. Every days, 9 a.m. Church visiting time. Every days, 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. Contact info. Sanctuary of Our Lady of Lourdes, 1, Avenue Mgr Host, 65108 Lourdes, France. Website, www.lourdesfrance.org. How to reach the sanctuary. Tarbes Lourdes Pyrénées Airport, Tarbes, LDE, Airport, in southwest of Tarbes in the Hautes-Pyrénées department of France is the nearby airport to the sanctuary. The Gare de Lourdes railway station in Lourdes, Occitanie, France is the nearby train station to the sanctuary. If you wish to know more about Catholic shrine basilicas, Marian shrines and Marian apparitions, subscribe to our Catholic Shrine Basilica YouTube channel. Like and share with your loved ones. For more churches, website www.catholicshrinebasilica.com.